Okay, welcome back. I'm sorry, I'm actually eating little tiny oranges and stuff. I haven't eaten today, so I'm eating now. Okay, the tomb of Sarah. My father was the head of a celebrated firm of the church restorers and decorators about 60 years ago. He had took a keen interest in his work and made a special study of any old legends of family histories that came under his observation. It was necessarily very well read and thoroughly well posted in all questions of folklore and medieval legend, as he kept a careful record of every case he investigated. The manuscripts he left at his death have a special interest. From amongst them, I have selected the following as being a particularly weird and extraordinary experience in presenting it to the public. I feel it is superfluous to apologize for its supernatural character. But of course, I love the supernatural. I'm sorry, my camera had slid down. My father's diary. 1841, June 17th. Received a commission from my old friend Peter Grant to enlarge and restore the chancel of his church at Hagerstone in the wilds of the West Country. July 5th. Went down to the Hagerstone with my head man, Somers. A very long and tiring journey. July 7th. Got the work well started. The old church is one of the special interests to the antiquarian, and I shall endeavor, while restoring it, to alter the existing arrangement of as little as possible. One large tomb, however, must be moved bodily 10 feet at least to the southward. Curiously enough, there is a somewhat forbidding inscription upon it in Latin, and I am sorry that this particular tomb should have to be moved. It stands amongst the graves of the Kenyans, an old family which has been extinct in these parts for centuries. The inscriptions on the runes thus: Quit it! Sarah, 1630. For the sake of the dead and the welfare of the living, let this sepulchre remain untouched and its occupant undisturbed till the coming of Christ. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. So right there is already a warning not to move it, that she can't be disturbed. Don't mess with her. July 8th. Some counsel with Grant concerning the Sarah tomb. We are both very loath to disturb it, but the ground has sunk so beneath it that the safety of the church is in danger. Thus we have no choice. However, the work shall be done as reverently as possible under our own direction. Grant says this is a legend in the neighborhood, that it is the tomb of the last of the Kenyans, the evil Countess Sarah, who was murdered in 1630. She lived quite alone in the old castle, whose ruins still stand 3 miles from here on the road to Bristol. Her reputation was an evil one, even for those days. She was a witch or werewoman, the only companion of her solitude being a familiar in the shape of a huge Asiatic wolf, my bad. I can't talk today still. This creature was reputed to seize upon children or failing these, sheep and other small animals, and convey them to the castle, where the countess used to suck their blood. It was popularly supposed that she could never be killed. This, however, proved a fallacy. since she was strangled one day by a mad peasant woman who had lost 2 children, she declaring that they had both been seized and carried off by the countess's familiar. This is a very interesting story since it points to a local superstition very similar to that of the vampire existing in Slavonic and Hungarian Europe. Okay, I'm a Wiccan, so those who may not know, a familiar is usually a creature considered an animal. It can't even be a human. Typically, it's usually a cat of some sort, typically a black cat, which my familiar actually bit me in the face like an asshole. Are used to protect and guard and do some of the bidding and helping. Basically, they will guard your spell books, deter people from going near your stuff or your home, or let you know if something is being disturbed or if there's a problem, bring you things to help with it, etc. So they're saying this woman was a witch and had a familiar of an Asiatic wolf. The tomb is built of black marble, surmounted by an enormous slab of the same material. On the slab is a magnificent group of figures. A young and handsome woman reclines upon a couch. Round her neck is a piece of rope, the end of which she holds in her hand. At her side is a gigantic dog with bared fangs and lolling tongue. The face of the reclining figure is a cruel one. The corners of the mouth are curiously lifted, showing the sharp points of long canine or dog teeth. The whole group, though magnificently executed, leaves a most unpleasant sensation. I doubt this woman was a witch because usually if someone was trying to kill you, I'm pretty sure that big of a dog would try to intervene. Because I know if people will come in my room and try to wake me up and my cat Zombie is laying with me, he will attack them. He bites too. If you haven't seen the lovely bite marks on my face, he bit me because I wouldn't give him his way. He wanted treats and treats and treats, and I told him no. If we move the tomb, it will have to be done in 2 pieces. The covering slab first, and the tomb proper. We have decided to remove the covering slab tomorrow, July 9th, 6 p.m., a very strange day. By noon, everything was ready for lifting off the covering stone, and after the men's dinner, we started the jacks and pulleys. The slab lifted easily enough, though it fitted closely into its seat and was further secured by some sort of mortar or putty, which must have kept the interior perfectly airtight. None of us were prepared for the horrific rush of foul, moldy air that escaped as the cover lifted clear of its seating, and the contents that gradually came into view were more startling still. There lay the full dressed body of a woman, wizened and shrunk and ghastly pale as if from starvation. Round her neck was a loose cord, and judging by the scars still visible, the story of death of strangulation was true enough. The most horrible part, however, was the extraordinary freshness of the body. Except for the appearance of starvation, life might have been only just extinct. The flesh was soft and white, and the eyes were wide open and seemed to stare at us with a fearful understanding in them. The body itself lay on mold without any pretense to coffin or shell. For several moments we gazed with horrible curiosity, and then it became too much for my workmen, who implored us to replace the covering slab. That, of course, he would not do, but I set the carpenters to work at once to make a temporary cover while we removed the tomb to its new position. This is a long job and will take 2 or 3 days at least. So basically, they removed the top cover of the tomb, and she's basically laying in an open, flat bed. No tomb, no caskets of any sort. Basically, she's not in a casket. She's just laying on a bed, dressed, with the noose still around her neck of how she died, which is very creepy. You figured they would have took that off of the poor woman. Even though you did consider her to be evil, you figured they would. July 9th, 9 p.m. Just at sunset, we were startled by the howling of seemingly every dog in the village. It lasted for 10 minutes or a quarter of an hour, basically 15 minutes, and then ceased as suddenly as it began. This and a curious mist that was risen around the church makes me feel rather anxious about the Sarah tomb. According to the best established traditions of the vampire haunted countries, the disturbance of dogs or wolves at sunset is supposed to indicate the presence of one of these fiends, and local fog is always considered to be a certain sign. The vampire has the power of inducing it for the purpose of concealing its movement near its hiding place at any time. I dare not mention or even hint my fears to the rector, for he is not unnaturally perhaps a rank disbeliever of many things that I know from experience are not only possible but even probable. I must work this out alone at first and get his aid without his knowing in what direction he is helping me. I shall not watch till midnight at least. So basically, they're saying that the howling and the mist are signs of evil and concealing of her awakening. Basically, they consider her a vampire, and they say she's waking up and moving, and she's trying to conceal it. 10:15 p.m. As I feared and half expected, just before 10, there was another outburst of hideous howling. It was commenced most distinctly by a particularly horrible and blood-curdling wail from the vicinity of the churchyard. The chorus lasted only a few minutes, however, and at the end of it I saw a large dark shape, like a huge dog, emerge from the fog and leap away at a rapid center towards the open country. Assuming this to be what I fear, I shall see it return soon after midnight. 12:30 p.m. I was right. Almost at midnight struck, I saw the beast returning. It stopped at the spot where the fog seemed to commence, and lifting up its head, gave tongue to that particular horrible, long-drawn wail that I had noticed as preceding the outburst earlier in the evening. So basically, he's saying he's seeing that giant Asiatic wolf or dog or whatever that the woman used to own. Basically, her familiar. In life or death, those things will follow you. Just so you know, you have a familiar. Those things follow you forever. Tomorrow I shall tell the rector what I have seen, and if, as I expect, we hear of some neighboring sheepfold having been raided, I shall get him to watch with me for his nocturnal marauder. I shall also examine the Sarah tomb for something which he may notice without any previous hint from me. July 10th. I found the workmen this morning with disturbed in mind about the howling of the dogs. We don't like it, sir. One of them said to me, we don't like it. There was something abroad last night that was unholy. They were still more uncomfortable when the news came round that a large dog had made a raid upon a flock of sheep, scattering them far and wide and leaving 3 of them dead, with torn throats in the field. When I told the rector of what I have seen and what was being said in the village, he immediately decided that we must try and catch or at least identify the beast I had seen. Of course, said he, it is some dog lately imported into the neighborhood. for I know of nothing about here nearly as large as the animal you describe, though its size may be due to the deceptive moonlight. This afternoon I asked the rector as a favor to assist me in lifting the temporary cover that was on the tomb, giving as an excuse the reason that I wished to obtain a portion of the curious mortar with which it had been sealed. After a slight demur, he consented, and he raised the lid. If the sight that met our eyes gave me a shock, at least it appalled Grant. Great God, he examined. The woman is alive! And so it seemed for a moment. The corpse had lost much of its starved appearance, and looked hideously fresh and alive. It was still wrinkled and shrunken, but the lips were firm, and of the rich red hue of health. The eyes, if possible, were more appalling than ever. Though fixed and staring at the corner of the mouth, I thought I decided a slight dark-colored froth. But I said nothing but it then. "Take your piece of mortar, Harry," gasped Grant, "and let us shut the tomb again. God help me, parson though I am, such dead faces frighten me." Nor was I sorry to hide the terrible face again, but I got my bit of mortar, and I have advanced to step towards the solution of the mystery. The tomb was moved several feet toward its new position, but it will be 2 or 3 days yet before we shall be ready to replace the slab. So basically, she is what they said she was. And the reason why they said do not open the tomb, do not move it, don't disturb it, because they woke her up. She was basically put into a sleep when they did the strangulation. They did not kill the woman. Her wolf has been bringing back, basically killing things and bringing back fresh blood to keep her alive. And basically, she is getting ready to be awoken again because of their stupid mistakes. But we will be back for the next part of this. Hopefully you like this one. I actually like this story. This is a really interesting one. But this is why you don't disturb graves, people. Because you never know what you're going to walk into. But if you haven't done so already, hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget the little cute notification bell at the bottom. And we will be back with the next part of this story.